real, it's the next episode.
Welcome back. So in this episode we're going to give you an update about where I am with my 18650 setup. As you know, in the last episode I have something like 800 batteries that I was just testing to see how we're going to set up our recovery system, and there were some lessons that were learned there which I'd like to share with you. I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that the time it takes to having to recover that many batteries, 800, yet we've already got nearly 6,000 that we need to do. So we need to implement something that's going to sort of automate it. So I've got some ideas about that, and hopefully you guys, the viewers, may be able to contribute regarding how we can go and set that up. Right, first things first, let's have a look at the data regarding the recovery of the close to 800 batteries that we've done for this initial test setup. As with any data, I've done a little bar graph. I'm going to help myself, but it's probably the best way to represent the data that we got there. So the chart shows the two values on the axes. The vertical value shows the number of units, how many cells we have, and obviously the horizontal shows the capacity range, which we started with dead as a dodo, and we went from 50 to 500, 500 to 1,000, and then incremented it 100 up to the point where I had the maximum battery, which was above the 2,400 milliamp hours. Generally, if you look at the graph, it shows that the peaks between 17 and 2,100 milliamp hours. So that's where the majority of the batteries will show. So I think that if we could have the range from 1,100 to 2,400, that would give us as a percentage roughly 77% of the batteries that I'm going to recover. But if we go to 1,000 to 2,400, so we take that yellow column as well, we could have a success rate of about 80% recovered. My only thing I'm confused about, and maybe someone can give me some feedback on this, is it worth having the above 1,000 to below 1,100? Or should I stick to my 1,100 to 2,400 and make up the packs so that they're kind of balanced? Bear in mind, these batteries that I opened up, they were completely an assorted bunch of batteries. There wasn't one particular brand, but just an assortment of batteries that I had. The mountain that we have to tackle will consist of batteries that are showing possibly 15 to 1,800 milliamp hours, and I think majority of the packs that we will have will be around the 1,700 milliamp hour. So that's still impressive. I mean, it's above the 1,500 milliamp hour, which is I was hoping was going to be. But I'm keen to know how other people have got such higher battery values, because obviously I've looked at some other channels and they're getting way above, on average, 2,200 milliamp hours. So is it in the testing? Is it in the discharges that I'm using that is the issue? I'd love to hear your comments. Glancing over the label on one of the battery packs, we can see that it's rated at 11.1 volts with a capacity of 48 watt hours. Well, we know that watt hour is volts times amp hours, and assuming that the nominal operating voltage for each cell is going to be 3.7 volts, we can divide 11.1 divided by 3.7 gives us 3 cells. So we know that these batteries, these packs, have 6 cells in it, so it must mean that they are configured in a 3S2P configuration. So then we can take the 48.8 watt hours and divide that by 11.1 volts, which gives us a rounded figure of 4.4 amp hours, which is the same as 4400 milliamp hours. We can then take the 4400 milliamp hours and divide that by 3. That will give us a minimum capacity of 1466 milliamp hours. But the rating that they've given on the back is a minimum 4.2 amp hours. And in fact, opening up one of the cells just to test the batteries, I've got an average of about 1600 milliamp hours from each cell. So one of the main issues I have is I'm not confident in the capacity that I've measured on these batteries. And the reason I'm not confident is because I've used up to 5 different types of dischargers. Now some dischargers are showing higher capacity and some are showing lower. So which is the correct one? Well, we don't know. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to ditch the IMAX B6 chargers. I'm going to ditch the VC4 multi-discharger and charger. I'm going to stick with the ZB206 that I have on this discharging board, as well as I've invested in 6 more of the ZB2L3 boards, which are the newer version of the boards that we have on the discharger board. And even doing that, there's going to be variations as well, because they're all dependent on a resistor, especially the ZB2L3s. And as you know, resistors do have a tolerance as well. I'm hoping that there won't be such a big tolerance. We're talking about 5% variation. But we also got issues with the TP4056. Now, as I've been charging these, I've noticed that some batteries charge higher and some batteries charge lower. Julian Eilert, if you check out his channel, he covers the TP4056 and he actually discusses the resistor side of it and how you can change the resistor. It may be that tolerance in the resistor that is causing the batteries to charge up at varying rates. Now, what can we do about it? Well, there's not a lot we can do about that unless we use one TP4056 and we use one discharger. Then that will basically get rid of all of their variations. If there is an error of margin in the TP4056 and the discharger, then that error of margin will be the same throughout all the batteries. Well, as you know, the big disadvantage of doing it that way is it will take forever. Currently, I have 24 of those TP4056 charging, and even that, as an example, is time consuming because they take a long time to charge. Having to remove them, to replace them, and to record on the batteries their voltage readings is time consuming. If I just increase everything, if we go from 24 to 48 and have a bigger board and increase the discharging to triple, so in essence we've increased our capacity, all that means is that I have to micromanage more of the discharging and the charging of those units. There must be a more clever way and a simpler way to do this. So I got this idea about creating a rig that would help me speed up measuring the battery voltage. And it kind of works very similar to if you go to a kind of a candy store and they've got kind of a candy bar dispenser. I think the companies have those boxes pre-made. Right, let's create a rig that will help me measure the batteries and just speed up the whole process. Well, here it is, it's all assembled. You're probably questioning why I designed this and why I spent the time to make this. So the main reason for designing this rig was basically a proof of concept. First of all, can I save myself time by custom making some tools that will help me recover the batteries faster? Secondly, there are some design elements of this that need to be figured out, and those were how to feed the batteries without getting them jammed. How do we actually engage the terminals? These are the terminals on either side to contact with the battery so that I can get the reading. And thirdly, how can I guide them up to the terminals and so on. We know from this that there are a few minor bugs regarding the batteries being fed, but really, as I said, it was a proof of concept. And why do I keep saying proof of concept? Because I've got an idea to build a bigger machine, and I've done a sketch here. So here's the concept that we've got in place to hopefully semi-automate the recovery of the 18650 batteries. And the concept's quite simple. It's basically a hopper here. We feed in X amount of batteries. There is a sensor check on the foot of the mouth of the hopper to check to see if there's batteries in there. And that's really if we have batteries that basically overnight run out. You don't want the machine to constantly keep running, so it knows that that's the last battery and it will keep going through until it gets to the end. So this thing here, which is rectangular, is actually a disc, which is turntable with a slot to accept the 18650, and what it checks for is the orientation of the battery. So obviously, because we're using a TP4056, we want the orientation to be correct so that it doesn't blow up. So this will go through, it will check it, and it will use a servo. So for example, we've got a NEMA 17 motor here to rotate it 180 degrees and make sure that the orientation of the battery is correct. This will move along and be pushed using some sort of driving system. So I've built, I've kind of put down a sketch here of a worm gear that can be 3D printed, and that will just feed the batteries individually through the machine. So it will move along in the same orientation and go up to these terminals here. This terminal is where it does the first charge, which is connected to the TP4056. But directly below the battery is also a temperature sensor. In this case, I'm hoping to use a DS18B20, which is a one-wire temperature sensor. That will detect a temperature, and we can set a value of up to 60-70 degrees. And should it reach that, then the worm gear will be driven, that will be ejected, next one will be fed in, and when it's ejected, a trapdoor here will open up via a servo, and that will then eject the battery because it overheats. Should the TP4056 get to its full charge, we will then eject it. The trapdoor is still closed. It will carry on down this tube and onto the next phase. And the next phase, obviously, haven't drawn down here, but the next phase is obviously the discharge. So the whole mechanism will be controlled via Arduino. So we've got an Arduino Uno here, and we've got an Arduino Nano here. They're both the same thing, just different sizes. The reason we're using Arduino is because Arduino will control all the mechanisms. It will keep an eye on the temperature. It will control the servo. And it also has the ability to actually discharge the batteries. We can program the Arduino to discharge the batteries, and not only discharge them, once it's discharged them, actually store the data on an SD card. So these batteries will all come through in order, and it'll go through, and after discharge it will hit another circuit here, another stage, which will be connected to a TP4056, which is the final stage of having to charge them for storage state. The end processor will actually go into a collection bin, which I haven't drawn here, and the collection bin will store the batteries in order of how they've been discharged. And the reason is I can whip out that SD card, and then write down manually the capacity that is stored on the SD card on those batteries. And that's how I'm hoping to create this machine. The whole purpose again is to try to automate the process of recovery of the 18650, and it's unusual for anyone to have as many batteries as I have, but obviously there's a growing trend in the YouTube community as well as online that people are looking to recover batteries. So why not design a machine that people can build themselves in their homes, or they can all contribute to the building of this machine. So where my strengths are going to be is I'm quite capable of doing the mechanical bits, but where I'm not so capable is actually the programming side. I have looked into the various codes that you can get. There are codes for discharging, there are codes for controlling the temperature, there are controls for controlling stepper motors and servos, and checking on the sensor. But what I'm not very good at is actually compiling all the code into one big program. So I'm going to ask the community out there if there's anyone that knows how to use Arduino and how to code it, then please feel free to jump on board. In the meantime, I'm just going to get on with creating the machine itself, and I'll know where things need to go, but the control system I'll try to figure out myself and share that with you guys in due course. I hope you're excited as I am about this machine, and we'll just see how this design evolves into the final machine. I'm sure there'll be things to be learnt, things to figure out, but I think that's the whole point of design. Well, thanks for joining me on this episode, and I do hope you can join me on the next few episodes as well. We'll look to continue with the semi-automatic machine. I want to produce some more concepts and some CAD work, and I'm hoping for some feedback from you guys that would help me evolve that design further. I truly will need some help with the Arduino, although I've started to practice with my little boys, see if we can get something going ourselves. I'd also like to take this moment to say a big thank you to Pete at HB Powerwall. I've been watching his videos from the start, and he's just so informative, and the way that he's built his Powerwall is just amazing. And really looking forward to him producing his 48 volt system as well. I think also it's a good idea for me to, at the end of the video, recommend people that I've followed, people who I've watched and been inspired by. And I think always at the end of the videos I'd like to end that video with giving my recommendations of the next YouTuber that people should subscribe to. We're all a community of people that have very similar interests, so I think it's a good idea to do that. So on this video I'd like to mention Andrew Jones. I think his videos are brilliant, his channel is amazing. He's very talented in the way that he video edits, and his videos are very technical and just informative. So if you haven't checked him out, Andrew Jones, go and subscribe, check him out and let me know what you think.